Hey guys, Eric and Yelly again. Today I'm still back on this Trax. I ordered some parts for it. It's going to be a while before it gets here. I have nothing to do for a couple hours till I'm going to put brakes on her Uncle Joe's. It's a Honda Fit, I believe. He travels. He's traveling copy repair. He does a lot of braking. So put brakes on it quite a few times. So now I come out here today with, I always got an idea in my head and it never works out quite right. It's like I was excited to get my rock key package yesterday. I was thinking about them 4-in-1 test leads for a long time that while they were on the way, and I was thinking about ordering them for quite a while. But this wasn't a good coil to test this on. Just thinking about that monocoil, it's just one big block with four. It has to be well insulated. I've used the HT25 paddle probe on it on these kind of coils before. I mean, you could find a misfire with it, but usually you get all four. You get three at a certain, a certain height. You could see the spark line, but then you'll see one that you're directly over. But these were only picking up the one rate that they were directly over. So that's a good plus on how they picked up. Now, you can find a misfire with that on there, but I know these things look better because if you go to Rotkey's site, he's using them on a more standard coil. And I mean, look at that. That's the parade pattern I'm after. I'm trying to get it on Hscope. So that's my project anyway. So that was the intent of that. I was kind of surprised because I still had Booma's juke in my head, and I looked up the schematics, which I have on the Russian all data. It goes up. It had up to 2016. That's Booma's juke. I thought that was this year. This is actually a 2019. The 16 had the 4 individual coils. That's the wiring schematics I had, and it doesn't go up to 19. But I did find some things online and on Rotkey. I found a known good cam and crank with both the cams, but it was for a non-turbo out of a Cobalt. It's hard to find for specific tracks, but then I did find a pinout for that monocoil, so it'll be easier to get primary injection as a sink, so we don't have to worry about sinking off of a fuel injector, which leads me back to Moto Trax. He left a comment yesterday. It made me think. I mean, I was still in the garage. This is one thing too, like a comparison between Hscope and the Vato so far. If I recorded that on the Vato, I'm done. If I didn't take a screenshot or a screen recording, I can't really reload that easily. Excel, yes, but I mean, I'm not going to go put phase rollers on an Excel document. But I just opened up my laptop, thought about like whenever I was actually doing it live, I was, I thought how to sync off his injector, and I didn't know. I didn't have an answer, so I was just assuming that was number one and never came back to it. But getting me thinking, I mean, with the tools that come with the Hscope automotive module, it was very easy to identify the cylinder. I'll show you a quick pic of, just how I did it. Just with the phase rollers, I just made sure I had 4 cylinders on, and I mean it's pretty lucky. I mean this is a 4-cylinder, like a 6 or an 8. You might have questions. There might be 2 in the intake phase, but instead of lining number 1 up like we usually do with like a known spark event, like if we know this is number 1, we line this up with number 1. And that's what I did over here. And then the comment he made is, does this scope go backward, read from right to left? Because yeah, you can't have this going on, So this way back here would have been number 1, because if you look at number 1 over on intake, there's the fuel injector opening. Who else is taking the drink? Nobody else is on intake. So this has to be number 1. So that was a good car to learn a lesson on. I mean, between the scope, comments, and the car, I mean, that you don't need a teacher. The scope takes over the rest. I mean, there's a lesson every day, and I'm kind of wondering what's ahead of me. But if the plan goes it does in my head, I'd like to try to get like the intake cam in the crank signal on Hscope, and then the exhaust cam and the crank signal on Hscope, because that way with a 2-channel scope you should be able to compare, you know, do the same thing as if you had them all on one channel. And then I want to use the Vato to get all 3 of them. So got a little bit to do before Uncle Joe gets here, but hey, this is all fun and games to me, guys. Hey guys, as I mentioned yesterday, if you've seen that video, to my ears, this battery doesn't sound very strong. And I wanted to do a charging test, starting and charging, and then you could do an RC at the same time. What I learned from the forums is these engines, the #1 piston likes to crack, and they're low in compression. So it's not just, you know, start and charging test. I'm actually checking the compression, see if anything's, you know, out of line there. Say it's some pre-ignition, or, you know, that they corrected it in the 2nd generation, but this is what we're dealing with. So it's as easy to do as, you know, I'm gonna try to get cam and crank correlation. So, but I mean, that's kind of, you know, putting the cart before the horse there. You know, whenever an RC test and voltage test, everything like that should be your first thing. So that's what I'm going to do. I got the MicSig Vato charging up, because that's why I got it for the 4 channels, for getting all 3 of these signals on one channel and having an ignition event using all 4 channels. So that's hopefully what I'm going to end up with. But first, I'm going to see how good, like in my head, if we had a crank signal and 1 cam signal, and then we had a crank signal and the other cam signal, and we had a crank signal in the ignition. As long as that crank signal stays constant, we should be able to, you know, at least see if it's that far out. But, you know, on Ronnie's PT Cruiser, after that was almost, that belt was ready to fall off. And it was barely off on that cam crank correlation. I mean, if it was off anymore, it would have spun it. So, but that's a belt. Chains get a lot more slop. Belt, yeah, not so much. That tooth starts moving, it's going to go. All right, guys, so I'm going to set it up, just do an RC test. I believe it has clear flood mode. It's a Chevy, so see how that looks before we go anywhere with this. All right, guys, that's got 1 lead on the positive, 1 lead on the negative, and I got hand tack the current clamp going around just a negative battery cable, very easy to get to. Got the HS512 and Hscope going. Now, what I usually do is use Pete Mayer. He always used the 20/20 rule for Motor Age. I believe he's with, what is it, Autel now, or is he with somebody else? I'm not sure, but he's still around. I seen he was in the seminar over the summer. Pretty close. I should have probably went to it. It would have been a hell of an experience. Just waiting for the amp clamp zero out a little bit. There it is, it's zeroed. I'm going to hit start. Now, I'm not sure I could do an RC test on this. The battery is, like I say, it sounds pretty bad. So I'm going to just do a starting test first. Turn on some accessories too. Check the alternator while you're at it. I mean, it's a hell of a setup for a multi-test. See what we get on it. It's going to be close enough to where it shouldn't make that big of a difference. But all right, looks like I overshot in here. I go over scale. Oh, okay. I was just looking down here. It looked like I went off the scale. Now I'm going to just increase the load a little bit. That lights it on. now I'm going to stop it. And you could do this just on the voltage because you could see your voltage drop. You could even do an RC test with just voltage. Put it in clear flood mode, put your foot to the floor and crank it, and you're going to see your compression hump, same as you do on amperage. Only you're dropping volts instead of increasing. Yeah, low pass works pretty good on putting it on before too. It looks like same result. So these would be your compression humps in here, and you see as the amperage increases, the voltage goes down. So you're looking at the same thing. You could even actually invert them and then, compare them up. But the main thing I wanted to see was that voltage drop right away. And I could tell we're already a little bit under 8. There's about the peak. Oh boy, that's barely under 8, but 8 we could go down to on an oscilloscope. But it's the bottom of the limit, and this thing, it just doesn't sound right. It sounds like if it didn't start right up, you'd be stranded. But here's your compression humps again until it started. Like if I do an RC test, it probably won't start after it. I won't be able to do it very long, but in my head, hearing that these have cracked piston problems, might be a good chance to, take a look at it, or at least, if she ever needs any other engine work, you could keep that in mind. But you can see a lot. Just on starting and charging right off the bat, you could measure. Now let me get back over here. That would have been your inrush of voltage. If you wanted to see your inrush of current, all she had to do is I use this mouse so the screen kind of rotates a little bit on me. But on this side, you'd be looking at 471 amps on the inrush. Could zoom in even closer. And it's pretty accurate from out there. You could see your solenoid. You might not want the low pass on if you're looking for dropouts in there. But you could see the same thing on the voltage. That's why usually 150 kilosamples for me is enough for this. It is for most things. Until I got that lesson on CAN bus there, I didn't know what the higher resolutions would even do, because if you go any higher, the scope's capable of higher, much higher. But even if you go up to the next one, you're going to be looking at a lot of digital blocks that we really don't need in automotive. So 150 always seems to be my favorite. But you could see even whenever the solenoid, whenever it latched here and here, same thing. That's what we're zooming in real tight on right there. This is, I might be mistaken, but it'll be the contacts actually closing. All right, but that gives me all the information I need to know. I could save this, and tell them they're definitely going to need a battery. You could even check the amperage, how much it's putting back in the battery and what the voltage was. So here the voltage is coming back up after the alternator's kicking in, and the amperage is going down into the negative, which is pretty good for that quick. Here would be where the loads, where I put them on. What did the alternator do? at the lowest in here, and right on that bottom edge, 14.6. Oh no, here, oh, that's where I shut it off. But yeah, the lowest the alternator went. It's 14.6 volts, but the battery's where we really got the low point. All right, that's a pretty quick test for that. And I mean, I figure, hey, if you're going after everything else, this is the basic. This is if you get your scope, and have an amp clamp. This is like your first test. You don't need it to do the test. Even if you only have leads in one channel, you could do. Let me shut channel 2 off. Actually, first, let me invert channel 1 and show you. I mean, we're looking at the same thing. So yeah, you could do it. You can't really judge the accurate how many amps it's drawing. You can judge how hard it's hitting the battery, how low the battery voltage is dropping. You could still do your RC test. So even if you only have one channel, you could still do this test. But it's the first one you should do every car. Okay guys, if the Chevy Cruise form was right, that green wire should be the crankshaft position sensor. I got that back probed. I'm not usually a big fan of back probing the ECUs unless you're actually, you know, chasing down a problem. But I've been using these mini back probes. You could see the diameter of them. It's, you know, I'd say pretty close to half the diameter. I mean, they just slide right in there. There's no resistance, and you still get a signal. Plus, you really can't bottom them out to where you're going to damage something. I really like them. They slide in there real nice. These caps come off pretty easy. And it was just, you know, 2 little clip pins on there. That got that off of that. And we got that cover off there without even unplugging it. I mean, they pop right off. So I'm going to go with the information I got, and I'm going to start up, just make sure I got a crank signal first. Okay guys, just click in Hscope, open it up. Just go to the maximum time. It's on the right scale. You can just fire up. See, I'm saving the RC test to the end because I know it's going to kill us. All right, there's their signal. Now this is just still oscilloscope mode. This isn't the automotive module. If you go to the automotive module, the sample rate was pretty high on that. Like if you look on the oscilloscope, the sample rate's on 600. I mean, the detail of them, if you stop them, when we go to automotive, I'm keeping it on a 20 milliseconds. Same scale. If you have the 502, you might be able to zero in on that 5 volt a little bit more. But my next scale down with the 512 is a 3 volt scale. So I'd be under. We could see the signal down here live. We could just go. I'm actually going to see what it looks like increasing the engine while just on crank cylinder at maximum resolution. Okay. Okay, we're still recording. Stop it. So that's no filters, just straight up. And here's the rev when it increased. You could see the sync notch. You could count the teeth very easy. Now, if this goes like it does in my head, these things here you'll pick up, don't worry about them unless you keep seeing them over and over again. So that's what you'd be getting on one channel with the sync. Now this is with 600 kilosample a second resolution. This is where when I snapped it. Then seems to go back down to normal on the D cell. That's pretty neat. But at any rate, if my idea works right, I'd like to get both this signal first with the crank, or with the primary ignition rather. I'm sorry, hard to talk while I'm actually doing something, but I'm going to go into the monocoil, and if the wiring diagram I got was right for the pinout for that connector, I should be able to get on number 1 primary. So we don't have to worry about timing to a fuel injector today. We're going to go straight from the coil's mouth. All right, guys, this is the pinout I'm going off of. We're losing on the bottom there. There we go. The ignition control wire should be dark blue and violet. That's the one I have back probed. I just wanted to make sure I got the right one on there. That cap, again, it just comes off without even unplugging it. So what I did is I put a 20-to-1 attenuator on. I'm not sure we're going to see primary ignition or if we're going to just see, it's when I see control, I assume that's primary. But I don't know if this is one of them coils that we can, because I know Danner talks a lot about the, bigger than 3-wire coils being hard to get the primary off of. If this is that type of coil, we're not going to be able to see the primary. But when I see control, I think, attenuator, but we might just be looking at what I call signal wire. I might have that reversed, but I mean, that's just how I roll. You guys, a quick tip. If you have a low voltage input oscilloscope, always make sure you use an attenuator. Find a way to attach it to it if you have to. But this is the HS512. It has a maximum on there of a 32 volt scale, and that's a times 20. So that should be 640 volts. So if you had the HS502, it's half of that. Should be 320 volts. The HS512 Max has an even higher input range. But what I figure is that always on an unexpected signal, that's why I went with the 512, because I figure, operator error, I'd rather err on the side of having a higher input range than be able to get down real low for CAN bus. Now, I'd like to have one of them for that too. But, whenever you're first learning, what you're doing, what you're plugging in, I just go like, full tilt. If you don't like the signal or if it's too low, then you could, reduce. But you're not supposed to let the smoke out of these. We want to keep that in there. That's what gives us the squiggly lines. Okay, guys, I'm just back on oscilloscope mode. I'm not in the automotive module yet. The 300 is the highest sample rate you're going to get before going into pages. The highest, the most time I can put on the screen is 4 milliseconds. I'm going to just hit play and start the car. It sure don't look like primary. What is it? Let's go to the auto module where it's a little longer time base. Ball settings the same, 20 millisecond. Do this and stop it just to see if I am getting a signal at all on channel 2. No, I am not. There's nothing to zero in on. Let me check my back probes. This is where I like to look for finding this problem. Just on scope mode, it's like a live screen. Then I'm going to just make sure my back probe didn't come. And there, what do we got? That's a lot better than going automotive module, recording, and then playing it back. The first one that's out up here, that's always your best. Where I capture the signal anyways and know what I'm going to want my settings, then you could go to a longer time base. Okay, now we'll record that. But we're going to go back down to the 20 milliseconds. But that's definitely not a, you can see on the bottom already, that's a square wave. Okay, so this is one of them coils that you can't back probe to get primary. So we're going to just have to go with number one signal. We'd get a much cleaner signal, I'm sure, without an attenuator if that thing's only 5 volts. But you never know. You never know what you're gonna encounter. So yeah, there's no need. You could quickly five volts. So yes, we don't need this. This is just, see, I wouldn't have called this a control myself. I'd have called that a signal wire, but hey, whatever it is, it is. That's what we're using for a sync. But I'm going to take the attenuator off because you get a much better signal. Well, that you can't complain about a square wave, but there's no need to attenuate and have different scales. Okay, this came back. I made sure I took the 20 to 1 attenuator off and put them both on 8.2 volt scales, and then just start the car up. And we're getting both signals, so move on to the automotive module. Go to 20 milliseconds. We have 3 minutes and 12 seconds you could record at this resolution. You just let it go, and I'm going to give it some gas. Just get it. You might want to see it under acceleration, but usually to get the correlation you only need it to make those screens. We just all like to see what things look like when you snap throttle. because even down in here I could already see it. You go right to it. Okay. So you definitely get a usable sink. Now the thing would be, I don't know if a filter is helpful at all in this situation. There's only one way to find out. Yes, it is. How about on channel 1? Are we on a rev? That might be a... Well, maybe we're going to keep channel 1. No filter. We're still seeing how fast that crank. Now, you know what? I'd rather see it square myself on this. I know some of you had to be thinking it. Somebody, anyways. We don't want to see that round. But you could sync that, you know, find 2 or 3. Wherever you wanted to make sure you had enough. But that's the cool thing with Hscope. You could reload this. Whenever you do find, if you look on all data, they'll have a cam crank correlation, or if you get it from another Hscope user in the waveform library, that's even more convenient because you could directly compare yours. But you're going to be looking at a piece of paper and counting these teeth. Can you do that number 1 ignition signal? Absolutely. So if you saved this, you could time the ignition to it. It would be hard under the RPMs. I mean, this would be like, I don't know, maybe checking time and chain slack at idle. I mean, there's probably more uses for it, but just by using 2 channels to be able to manipulate, like, you know, what a 4-channel would do. And it might be a fool's errand, but, you know, we're not going to prove nothing by it anyways, but I'm just proving to myself you could time where the crank sync is with number 1 firing. Problem is it covers several, but you'd go with the leading edge or falling edge. I mean, they put them settings on there for people that, I mean, there's a falling edge for a voltage signal, but some people like lining it up with the falling edge. But you have to do the same thing on the next signal. You got to make sure you do that. Like if you measure this edge here, you just want to double and triple check that you're not measuring this, because that's going to throw you off, especially on degrees. All right, guys, I'm going to move and see if I could get the crank with the cam signal next. All right, compadres, I got the same back probe, the mini back probe. Now this would be going into the diagram that I found. It's cam sensor 1. So I'm going to assume that's intake on, I know for Toyotas and Dodges, that's definitely cam A is intake cam. So I'm going to just start it up, switch over to the recorder, and see if we get a cam signal. Everything the same, just moved the probe. I left the back probe in the coil because I'm going to be back to that with the next thing. Good thing I have that many back probes getting before that. All right, we got a cam signal. So this is still oscilloscope. Jump over to the automotive module. Hit record. Put them on the screen. Just give it one snap. pretty good. You'd definitely be able to count even in between. And that's definitely going to give you something to look for on a waveform. You might only be able to time one cam at a time, but you could definitely time the cams individually. Now I'm going to go see if this is the intake cam. I'm going to call it that for now, then I'm going to move on to cam 2. This is the same settings, I just moved it over to what the diagram is calling cam sensor. Okay, there, we're getting the signal. I didn't hit play, it was on pause up here from the last waveform. So you could change, if you don't like looking at it, it'll be easier to show you on the captured waveforms, but if you don't like the height, or the width or the size, it's easily adjustable. You're still counting the same amount of teeth, you're just changing your height. Go over to automotive, still the same setup as this. Only this will be should be the exhaust camshaft, camshaft 2. Give it a little bit. Okay, stop it. And we have the same thing, only this should be the other camshaft. Now we could also see this is only going with 2 channels. This is why I'm just seeing how much information a 2-channel scope can gather. Nothing more. Okay guys, now this is just camshaft and camshaft relationship. I don't know if there is like Scanner Danner would say any validity to this, but I mean, you know, is there? I mean, I'm not sure, but I figure if it's something that could be measured, it's something that could be seen. Stop that, and then now you're looking at what your camshafts are doing under an acceleration and the relationship whenever you give a gas or whenever you're at idle. You could actually see the frequency and the overlap happen. That's definitely something you could line up, compare one to the other. All right, let me see if anything else could be. That will be the crankshaft with the ignition, the crankshaft with camshaft 1, the crankshaft with camshaft 2, and camshaft to camshaft. So that should pretty much close it up for the Hscope. We're going to come back, look, or at least I'm going to come back, look at some of the waveforms, and I'm going to try to See what the known good rock key that was done on 3 channels looks like, or 4 channel. I believe it's actually a 5 channel. You had fuel pressure in there also. I'm gonna have to double check if I'm allowed to just post, something I took off his waveform library, but I'm pretty sure it's open. So, boy, that looks crazy. Yeah, that's right at the beginning of an acceleration. You want detail though, for $100, man, you ain't gonna beat this scope. Okay, that was pretty cool with Hscope. I mean, got just about any correlation you wanted. I mean, you could have got number 1 firing event width or a number 1 signal width and exhaust cam. You could kept going around the circle a little bit, but those would have been your big ones. Because if you're looking at downloaded waveform or something that you can't load into your scope, you're going to be comparing these very closely with just like a piece of paper and not a very big, like in the last time, I forget which card even was, the last time in chain that I got the all data monthly subscription, and they did include the waveform, but I mean, it was like, that big blown up on the screen, so you could tell it was taken on something like a Modus or something like that. But it's up to you to line it up with it. That's what makes the Pico software in with the Hscope community. They're starting to, they have a big starting. It's not huge yet, but I mean it's going to be if people keep adding signals to it. But it's like the Pico. It has a very good. You could share, like I could send you a waveform and you could manipulate it in your software. You could do that with Hscope, but Pico, if you have the automotive, I mean, if you're into their top of the line, I mean, I think that's included with that. I'm not sure if the 2 channels or the non-automotives get you any of that waveform library for automotive. But either way, I mean, it's the Hscope, I mean, it's only growing, so if you need a signal, check there. I mean, whenever I was looking for this one, I mean, I actually Googled it. I didn't search on Rotkey. I Googled a known good waveform for a 1.4, and Rotkey was the first one that came up. I mean, the day after using them Rotkey sensors. So that was pretty cool. And, it's done on that, I believe it's the MT Pro that he sells, but it's out of production for as of right now. But, Welding Junkie, he just bought one. There are some shops that still do sell them. If you like the way them Rotkeys work, look at his a website. He's starting to use them and making videos. Look on Rotkey using them. Those are crazy scopes. I mean, those are really cool. It's just to me, if it's not being produced anymore like that, I mean, it would be really cool to have, but I mean, how much of it is user serviceable if it's no longer being produced? Maybe all of it, and maybe none of it. But at any rate, I'm going to move on to the Vato. That's why I just kept them mini back probes where they were. So I already have 4 back probes in there. Just get 2 more cables off the wall, hook up all 4 channels, and see what that looks like. Really quick test. I mean, if I had a Mitchell y'all data for this car, it would have been much easier. But 10-15 minutes looking in online forums, cruise forums, whatever. But came up with something. All right, guys. Now's what I bought the MicSig for. Having all 4 channels run at once in case you're ever in that situation, or it's a very good way to capture, everything on one waveform, but sadly we can't reload these into Hscope or back into the MicSig software, manipulate them later. Like I can't send you a saved image that I'd save on the Vato, like a saved whole waveform that you could load back into your Vato and manipulate it. It saves as a bin file. There's a couple reference files which are really cool. That's kind of where they make up for the not being able to save, but you could save as many reference files as you want. You can't manipulate the time, but you could always pull these up again. So it's a pretty good trade-off, but I like being able to pull Hscope images back into Hscope, you know, sitting around the house eating potato chips. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is a little bit harder. You have to use the screen recorder on your tablet or the snapshot on your tablet. So, however you got that set up, that's what you got to do. This tablet was an S6. It did come with a pen that I since broke. I believe if you just click the button, it would take a snapshot or it would do something. But there might be some external devices. But, you know, as far as saving goes, Hscope all the way if you want to share the images or manipulate them later. But the MicSig, what I got it more for like is just being a bulldog. I mean, just whenever you're going to work on one car at a time with it, you need to fix this car and you're not worried about saving. You're not worried about importing. You need it, or importing. You are worried about the important, but you're not worried about, you know, saving this later. Or, you know, you're just worried about getting to the root of the problem. You know, and that's it. You need 4 channels to do it, and you do it now. With the Hscope, how we were comparing them, that would take some time to overlay. I mean, but you could do it. I mean, that's if you had to do it. You could do it with 2 channels. I'm sure of it, you know, but this, I wanted to see what the 4 channels look like on it. I took the time to label the channels there. I mean, you could pull up different channel names, but to get all 4, but it's very easy to label the channels on this. You just click the channel button and it'll let you name them whatever you want. But this is the same leads that I had going. Well, I left the back probes in. Now, all I did was attach 2 more leads. So we should be getting all them signals. Okay, guys, I'm going to start it. Turn the key and see if we can get a signal on the screen. It's 10 milliseconds of division, still getting 9. That's pretty good. That's a little bit too zoomed in to be useful for anything. Okay, we're getting all 4 of them. Now, the issue that I do have, well, it's like I kind of say, this is on the job scope, because I can't reload this waveform, and if I want to save it as a known good, I'd want at least this definition, I think. But to get 2 full crankshaft rotations. Now, the only thing I could do on this is screen record or snapshot. So I can't zoom in like reloading the waveform. This, as long as you got your sync, you can count your teeth and it's still legible. And you're not seeing your whole crank signal or your cam signals. So this is the resolution I need to get 2 full rotations. Let me see if by moving them around we can make them any more foreshortening. Yes, it's countable. I mean, more like a screenshot if you could still have some zoom left. You'd think you'd want at least this much to be able to count these, but we're not going to get full rotation of the camshafts. And we lost the spark event. You're definitely going to want a spark event, a screen. You know, you can, but I mean, like I said, this seems to me more like a live action. Am I using this to see if the timing chain has slack in it? Am I using it to see if the signal's not occurring? We're not even seeing primary or secondary whether a spark's occurring, so we'd quickly be checking the timing, and it's a pretty quick test to set up, but only live can you zoom in with this kind of detail. Or is the zoom feature any good to you? This would be the zoom. If you were looking on your waveform anywhere, we'll take that back off for a second. If you were looking from out here, right, let me capture this. We'll go 2 seconds of division. I'm going to get a snap in. And actually, I believe we could do a single. And even if I'm not back, we'll stop recording that. Nope, we did not need that much resolution, but starting to get a little slope. It's still very good for live counting the teeth. Like lining this up with the Cam 1 sensor. Seeing where the spark occurs live. Like zooming into any of these events. If you didn't see this and you wanted to zoom into it, if you seen it on the waveform up here, or you knew it was towards the end of your cycle, or you're just moving them quick like this until you see one missing. This is what the zoom screen's for. These edges align, I mean, yes, you can, but it seems more like this is hooked up to the scope. That's when you want to use this, when you're still hooked on the car, on your timing the ignition of the crank signal. These would be hard to time. I mean, you'd be going in between them. The degree rulers you can use, but that's on this screen is one of the things that I've found. If you use the degree rulers, you are going to want 2 rotations. So if you go off this falling edge and this falling edge, put the degree rulers on, you want to be a little bit more zoomed in for 720. Like that. But it's still doable to line these up. But as you zoom in, you might have to fine tweak them. But there are 720 rulers, 360 rulers. There's no phase rulers, but they're, you know, these got your degree rulers. If you can measure your camshaft, you have cursors available also under the quick menu. Actually click the other. See the channel you pick, the cursor changes too from where you're at. So that's a pretty cool feature. I mean, right now we're measuring in between these two, but if I click the purple trace like the Cam 1, it changes to the purple cursor. So that's pretty neat. It's very, you could shift channels very easy just by clicking. You have your measurements up here. And one thing that's cool is this menu. No matter what channel you click on, it measures everything it can. The frequency, voltages, duty cycle. So it gives you a lot. And you could go up here and you could add any of these. But whenever you just click the channel, these will change. So it's very easy to get a lot of measurements out of 4 channels. But this is a screen you'd like to save as a known good. This is going to be the best I could get on this car without actually having it hooked into the scope, because I'll never be able to reload this back into the MicSig software. But if you were checking the timing, hey, that's going to be more than enough. Alright guys, I'm going to shut this off and unplug the car a little bit, get ready for the brake job coming in. Alright guys, I also wanted to add, we did rev the car right in here. I just wanted to see if the resolution stuck around, if it would be anything usable. Out to a certain degree, definitely. But I would have recorded that a little bit slower in the future. I'm going to have to, all 4 channels going at once. Going to have to back down on the resolution just a little bit. Alright, that was a pretty fun day. I mean, actually about 2 hours altogether for all them tests. And that's recording and everything too. I mean, it's, you know, it's fairly simple to get to on this car. It's not on a lot. That's why I took the covers off them, you know, figured give it a shot. I do like these mini back probes, automotive specialties. I mean, they're very, I mean, you don't even really feel it making any contact. If it was one of them bigger pins, I'd be wondering, you know how you just feel when you touch the metal? You don't even really feel it touching the metal. I mean, it's very minimal, the back probe with these. So, you know, got a couple cool signals out of it. Was more interested, like, you know, of looking at it as having a 2-channel scope and seeing if you could get any kind of usable cam crank signals. And yeah, probably. I mean, if something was out, you had a known good. I mean, no matter what kind of scope the known good came from, you're going to be, you know, if you can't load it into your scope, you're going to be comparing, like, you know, picture to picture back and forth and doing your own way of coming up with, you know, a degrees system. But let me turn the screen recorder on one more time. I just want to, I'll show you my final take on this whole little experiment. But hey, experiment worked. I mean, the first couple times you get out of the scope, your experiments might not go as planned, but whenever you do have some luck with them, I mean, whenever they do start showing you what you expect to see, that's great. You know, I mean, there's no issues, no problems, you know, good test. All right, guys, always does seem to be the one final note, but what I'm finding more and more is the software of this. I'd get this before I got the Vato to learn how to use the scope. Or if I only had one scope, I'd have this just for the easy use of the software and everything you could do with the software. Like, I mean, the phase rulers, everything like that that's included with the automotive module. And you get the automotive module when you buy the scope. You don't have to purchase it. So there are times when you need 4 channels and you need them now. That's where this thing seems to shine, where you're looking at something live you're looking at a waveform while you disconnect something. You're looking at 4 of them. I mean, it has a lot of features. It's not overly complicated to use. It's still relatively user-friendly. It's not as easy as Hscope. Hscope's the most user-friendly scope I ever seen. I mean, it's actually fun to use, and you could actually see even the color contrast. You could change these to any color you want. You could change the background to any color you want. So it's easier what's on your eyes, and that right there to me is easy to count. So guys, that's just the final note. Hope you found it useful. All right, thanks. Adios. All right, guys, going to do some filming in the dark. I know the computer screen shows up a little bit better, but the known good that I was going to use off of Rotkey, it turned out to be a different car. It had a completely different kind of crank sensor pickup and a cam sensor. So what I'm going to do is just basically pretend like this was my known good, what I got with the MicSig. Because a lot of times you'll get these in the service data, you'll get these pictures in either books or, even if you had a Pico file that was saved. Anyway, like the Rocky, I kind of manipulated this one because you have to take a screenshot. It'd be much easier if we could load it back into a program. But what I'm doing first is just taking the crankshaft signal, and this would be the intake cam. Would be looking at the purple trace, but when we look at Hscope, it's actually the green trace because this is only 2 channel. And I could see an event like right above this one. This one, you have to count a lot of teeth in either direction. This one's centralized. It's pretty close to that trailing edge, so we could see where that is on here. That would be right in there. So that's what we're going to zoom in on. And see, on Hscope, it's very easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it looks like it's coming down. And on Hscope, see, this is what makes it so easy to have it reloaded into your, because you could put a cursor down and go straight. So we're coming down. It's a little bit into the leading edge of, if you count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's on lined up a little bit into the 6th one. So what I found is if you zoom in, and it was easier because this is such to get the whole crank in there, we had to be zoomed out pretty good. So around the bottom, this is where, let me get over the whole way. This is that little corner we just counted. We counted how many teeth to here. So what I found is easy to do is just use, it would be the selection tool, and I believe it was just you don't want the freeform. The rectangle will give you one good straight line. So you could just click on the right mouse and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then partially into the 6th. And then you could just zoom up and it's going to give you a straight line. It's also going to bring your waveform up if you drag it, but we just wanted to drag the cursor. Just to see where that straight line goes. We could see we're a little off this one here. If we go straight up from the crank signal. Every time I take my finger, there we go. We could see a little bit of the cam signal left. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. and right even with as much as we could see of that. That would be right here if we went straight up. Looks like the bar's just a tiny bit on the other side, but I mean, that's very close. You know, and then again, I'm just using basically a lasso tool. So just the thickness of the line different, but can we count the teeth off of a known good on the 2-channel? It's actually, yes, the resolution on the 2-channel makes it much easier and that we can manipulate it. Okay guys, same for the exhaust crank. That would be looking for cam 2. That would be the green one. And then this way, let me zoom in just a little bit more. And then we're going to just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go, we're almost on that green line. So if we look over to Hscope, this would be the same event. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the beginning of that green spot. This would be the exhaust cam. So we could time both cams to the crankshaft. Timing the cams together, we have nothing to reference off of, even though I did save that WAV file, but I don't think it would do. This would be the intake and the exhaust cams together. Now you could definitely, if you had this information, check yours, like if one cam, possibly like a VVT, if one's going bad, your cams aren't going to be in alignment. But this would be the alignment of your camshafts. Now on the image that we have, I mean, that's okay, but we have nothing to measure. Like we could count the teeth in between here in this one, but we have nothing to measure them together on. All you could do is move this into it. Basically looks like how that one was recorded. If we could see the lines, it's just a much thinner line. I do have the lines up a little bit higher on this. You could look at it anywhere down, like if you wanted on one more to look like what we're actually looking at on this. And I like the lines big whenever I'm recording in the garage because I could see it from far away. Yeah, guys, this is definitely easier to check your cam and crank with. I mean, it's just a shame we can't get the whole pattern like how we see it on there and get the full effect. Actually, you seen how easy it was to count teeth. You have your cursors to make sure you're in alignment with your camshaft, or your crankshaft rather. And then the same thing with the ignition. You just have to save. It would be 3 different waveforms to time your ignition with your exhaust, or your ignition with your either of your cams. You could check this. You could check this against the exhaust camshaft, and you could check your this isn't your firing event. This is your ignition signal to the monocoil. But, you know, it's a little bit harder and it's a little bit around the bush. But if any known good we have in Paint program on Windows, you could, you know, I'm sure there's some kind of cursor, some kind of straight line. But for right now, I just find that lasso tool, it puts a straight line down to give you a good comparison. But there might be, you know, degrees available on here, but for all the intents and purposes, you know, I consider that a pretty good. And like if I was looking for a loose diamond chain or something that skipped a tooth, or anything that's missing a signal. Of course, you're going to be able to do 2 channels at a time, check the signal, check the integrity, make sure there's nothing missing, like a damaged wheel or something in there. But hey, pretty good image with this. I like it. I like being able to actually compare something to take a known good. I did have that known good planned, but I mean, we didn't have that. But then I just thought in my head, hey, let's just use what the MicSig captured. Use that for the known good and, you know, see if I could compare it with Hscope, just 2 channels at a time. And we'll definitely be able to tell if our cams are in time with it. The ignition without an event, just with a signal, you know, we can't really tell. So next time maybe I'll try to get secondary on that mono coil where we can't get a primary. Definitely get secondary, at least get some kind of spark event. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I figured I had to come back, put that on there because I was curious myself whether, I took the image at one scope. If I was going to compare it again, which is going to be easier, and hands down, Hscope's easier to count, compare. It's easier because you can move. This is already captured. Now, if I was on the MicSig live, you could do all this. But once you have your waveform captured on the MicSig, that's what you're stuck with. Screenshot. Well, guys, that does wrap that up. So, it's the more and more I fill out this MicSig, it's like even my own car, if I was going to take known good waveforms off of it right now, or off of, like, say, this car, if Nancy has trouble again in the future, I'm going to use the Hscope 2 channel at a time to compare to the cam, and then I'll take a look at that MicSig snapshot. But what I'm finding out is if you want to look into it later on, if you want to make a capture, compare it to something, I mean, Hscope's great for that. It's going to let you manipulate the waveform. It's going to let you do everything you want to do. The Vato, I mean, that's for when you're in the pit, man. That's like if you have a known good in your hand, you're comparing it to this while you're hooked up to the car. The second you're not hooked up anymore, it loses probably its strongest point, is what it does while the cars are running. Not being able to get that waveform back inside it. I haven't tried putting it into Excel yet, but Excel does take wave files, but I know we're not going to get that kind of resolution. We're not going to be able to move, like take out a cam channel or something like that that's getting in your way. But it just seems like for under the hood while you're working on the car, Vato's top notch. I mean, Hscope also, I mean, it's very good under the hood too, but it gives you the ability to later on check it out, save it. You don't like the way it looks, send it to somebody. I mean, you could send a screenshot to somebody, but if they have Hscope and you send them the Hscope waveform, they could move it around. They could add a math channel or to anything on your waveform. Depends what kind it is. Somebody might come at it a different way and, send it back to you and say, this is what I think's wrong, or, whatever. That's how we all share everything. But it's hard to share the MicSig. If there was a solution to that, to be able to even get it back in the software, shut off a channel or two, drop cursors, anything like that. But it's alive. It's alive while you're working on the car. Take advantage of every feature it got, but take good snapshots, take a lot too. And also, if you're going to be taking these like that, the RPM's definitely a big factor. I didn't have a sync for the RPM. That's always one thing. I mean, the Modus, you have 4 channels and an RPM pickup. So that but if you use your scan tool and you write down or record what RPM you are, because a lot of things happen as we give it RPM. You don't want to go to a point in your wave file that was on an acceleration or while the AC was running. I mean, the computer's going to make adjustments. So you want to have your you want to have the car warmed up, of course, but you want to write down your RPM so you're close, because that crank signal moves, the cams moves. I mean, everything moves. We want to have a good point of reference. So, all right, guys, hope you enjoyed that. I just wanted to see if I could do that, and Turns out eight scope impresses me more and more. It just, on that, if you could have taken all 4 channels at once, that would have been great. But with 3 channels, I just proved to myself I could get a pointer reference anyways, and I'd rather have these 3 channels where I could get back in than just one picture. All right, guys, have a good one. Adios.